So this one might be kind of quick, or it might be another 2 or 3 hour one. I just copied the text out of Hogumathi boot up. It outputs all the content sources that it loads. So I showed the initial startup of the app that had all of these. If this module is loaded, then call this module dot register content sources, etc. So it outputs a line with the content source. I mentioned some kind of module function coordinates. So in the Twitter v2 facade.content source colon get tweets collection with ID pattern, there is none. The ones that don't end with the colon, and this was maybe a bad choice in text formatting to put another colon, but that's why there's 2 colons in some cases. It's that the colon is part of the text format, and then these ones end with a colon. So these ones have an ID pattern of basically digit that gets mapped onto the tweet ID parameter. We were talking about maybe revamping this in some way, but also everything that we consider about it, you know, it does a lot and it's good. You know, it's pretty simple. Well, you have to sit down and wrap your brain around it for a while, and we can fix that with documentation. You know, if it works for what we want it to do. So you see it's weighted 1,999 to the lowest weight, and it does go to the negatives, I think. Get loaded last, or no? Yeah, so higher weight would take precedence. Or just low weight. Ouch. That's embarrassing. But yeah, that's why we go through the code, and then maybe I use these transcripts as a basis to document important stuff. You know, what can we automate? One would also be able to just take notes as they go, type in like the timestamp and what their thought is. But if we can just run the transcript through something that does that for us, you know, why do the ceremony? We basically have an assistant to do it for. Oh, but the aquifers and stuff. Possibly a good point. If it takes the transcriber 2 hours to do it, say they're using like an ounce every 15 minutes. So that's like 8 ounces of water. So is it comparable? So anyway, tweets, there's a reason to be concise. Tweets, a couple different tweet sources. So I mentioned that there's some override stuff. So you have tweet item and then tweet item embed right next to it. So if the API backend isn't available, we actually saw this in action. We saw the embedded tweet, and that kind of surprised me. But yeah, that's why that happened, is because the content source gave back the embedded tweet source because we did not have the API backed one. For whatever reason, you know, maybe the API call failed because we didn't open the tab in time. I don't remember what the case was in the video, but I remember seeing the embedded tweet and being a little surprised. So then we have the bookmarks, the liked tweet, the feed user, and then there's a parameter. So this, I didn't like the naming ever. We could maybe redo it, but so reverse chronicle feed for the user also takes a user ID parameter. One is the timeline and one is the user's own posts. So feed user is the user's own posts, and then the reverse chronological. And there's a concept of like business accounts or shared access of some sort, so you can view the reverse chronological timeline of another user as well. So that's why that's like that. So then we got user, users, following, users, following user, or sorry, followings, user. So it looks like I made a mistake there. Could fix that. Twitter threads for user. So that is a filtered view of threads where it's only the original tweet and all of the original authors' replies to that conversation ID. So I don't remember if it was also in reply to user self. I think so. I think that's how I was able to accomplish that, but we'd have to look in and confirm that. So Twitter feed user, and then Twitter tweets, Twitter tweet again for the archive. So now this is at a lower weight. So the higher weight must take priority because we want to get it from live first. If that's not available, we get it from embed. If that's not available, we'll get it from archive. And then we're preferring the collection version before the singular version. And then we have a search source, a search SQL source. So there's probably just like simple text-based search, or we take some, possibly even the whole just raw SQL against the tweets database in the archive. So that's pretty sweet. So you already see we don't have that cache one we talked about. That would be something we'd add at a higher weight. You get how this is unfolding now. See how it's, you know, we looked at the content system on its own. It's like, oh, banging our head on this piece of crap. But now we're looking at the content sources that we expose, and it's like, oh, we haven't even gotten to the update content sources yet, which are, you know, kind of where I left off and where I started branching out into looking at what's already out there. So then we get into the YouTube backend channel, starting with channel by ID. So we could possibly unify those, but I did not. Playlist by ID, video by ID, subscribers for a channel, subscriptions for a channel. So that'll only work on channels that you have admin access to. The list is a simulated thing that I made in memory where I just have some hard-coded some hard-coded list names and lists of channels, just an array of lists that return the @name of the channel, the simple name, whatever of the channel, short URL, I don't remember the exact term. So we can get the list of playlists, the exact video, and then into Hogumathi app now. We have collection, the list of collections, so that's all the names. And then this is the mutating one, update collection. So we'll skip over that for now. So then we have some premium extensions, Twitter messaging, recent conversations, messages, and participants. Twitter feed likes for user, which is no longer public. Liked by, so that means you could only call it for yourself. So it might make sense to collapse it into liked tweets or whatever. Liked by, you can still view for your own tweets. We could materialize some of the liked from notifications that come. We don't have a notification one, but with our, because that's not offered through the official API, but with the scraper approach, maybe getting into icy waters to offer a notification feed, anything outside of what was offered for our stated purpose of offering compatibility with old legacy Twitter apps. You know, it's a polyfill. They should be offering this. But, you know, that's my opinion. But I offer it myself now for $12 a month. For early access, it'll eventually be free, you know, it'll eventually be offered, and there'll be a paid support option. But it's just early access to limit volume, because I think it's going to be a popular thing. And I just want to make sure that everything's good before I drop it, and there's not going to be too much support, you know. Drop in terms of like fryer basket. Going into the fryer. Once I drop it, the cooking starts. So we're just prepping it now. So then we got Gumroad. So this is kind of a concept, but it did work to some capacity. Products, subscriptions, more rightfully thought of as subscribers. I think you can only view your own subscribers, but abstractly APIs call these things subscriptions. So brands. So this is a little bit of a mistake. I probably started pseudocoding something and then did not finish it. So get Gumroad profile. So that should probably be Gumroad. Or maybe I just did a simple name. I was thinking about naming and just collapsed it as Gumroad : username. That's probably what I did. And then you get profile. And I didn't even give it a named parameter. So yeah, it's just anything that doesn't end with colon. So then the brands facade. So I obviously copied Gumroad from brands and then didn't rename some stuff. Or some element of brands into Gumroad. Anyway. So I did the same thing for brand : iSpooge daily, brand : harlanji. Get brand profile with ID pattern, same. So no restriction except ends in colon. So the brand name could even have colon, it just can't end with colon. If it does, you would map it as having 2 colons, I guess. I don't know. I just think that would work. Brand feed, that's where I want to unify all of their socials. Since the brand page, I'll pull it up real quick. I was thinking about including this in the other tab, but yeah, there's my ego. I'm so smart. But it's a self-defense mechanism, so we can't hate on it too much. So we have what the socials are on Hogumathi, YouTube, Mastodon, blah, 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 Twitch, Insta, blah, blah, blah. So feed would then merge all those feeds, but it doesn't work right now. And we could have brand collections. I don't know if it's doing anything on the back end, but I started noticing what I was playing with on that when I was reviewing the code. So yeah, brand feed, brand collections, brand search for a specific account maybe. Or maybe I added the explicit thing because it's not the top level identifier plus brand name. That's a little bit of a mental rule that I have, but I'm not 100% sure. Brand : username as opposed to brand : post ID. Hence Twitter tweet : whatever as opposed to Twitter : username. Yeah, a username can't be numbers, so the code could disambiguate, but you know, one could make the argument either way. Things to think about in evaluating a content system. This might be useful to 25 people on Earth plus myself for generating artifacts with AI, or a paid human assistant, if that's what you require, if that's what your governance, what your regulation requires. Okay, use a human and do what I'm describing. That's why that's a good level of AI used to use, like user, like an agent replaces a whole employee versus a chat and replaces a more limited employee's functions of just being on the other end of chat. So where's the line? Then we've got BitChute, some video. It looks like we've got get BitChute video and get BitChute feed. So that's probably by user, hence the short contracted form, as opposed to BitChute : user : whatever. A lot of services have their own name for user too. So it's like, do we stick with their attached name and then someone who's just implementing a bunch of stuff, doing like a big port or something, has to go figure out what it is? Or we just always know that BitChute : whatever is the user construct. RSS : so ones that only have one content source function Now it starts making a little more sense. I think it's RSS:URL. Yes, indeed. So self-documenting by giving the pattern a name that assigns to a keyword arg in the function. Atom, same thing, take a URL. GitHub feed profile user. So I started getting into getting profiles for user, getting gist for user. That's an interesting one. That must just take the gist ID because I don't think they're keyed by users, but they may be. But they should be even unique across users. I guess maybe a user could have a fork of another user's that would have the same ID. So then we see more in the BitChute facade. It looks like I was just scratching some stuff out for some of my internal apps. Notes, cards collection, notes cards search, videos collection. But those are in the BitChute facade. So that's probably just like whatever I had open. I was just scratching down some ideas. I was going to copy them into their own file if they fleshed out. So I'm giving a little bit of my methodology sauce again. You know, I don't like to give it away. I like to give away the results, but you know, I've got an unlimited supply of sauce through Christ, so I can give some of it away. The field will evolve. Short term, you know, I give my competitors a little bit of an advantage who are just booting themselves up. This is the result of me booting myself up, this app, and doing all this. So this is all 100% pre-AI. If that's a requirement, that's awesome. I've used no AI in the making of this product to date, although I will definitely use some AI. So if that's super important to you, you better state that, so maybe I can have a branch, but maybe that branch will be pay to play, because AI can just access it if it's not. And if AI free is its own little ecosystem, maybe we can take currencies besides dollars. So let me know how you want to pay. Please don't say cryptos. I have no cryptos. And it's just like once I own one, I cannot make that statement anymore. You know? Then I have to qualify or whatever. To some people, it's just a possible ask. I just don't want to do it. So that's a little bit of a sidebar to what's going on in this. Although this whole thing, you know, what's not loaded is some Noster content sources, some other content sources that, you know, or the ability to add such content sources. We could have a crypto flavored Hogumathi. I think maybe I've sampled, I don't even remember what one of the very early AI crypto chains was, similar to Braves but earlier. I forget the name of it, but I put it in some of my live streams earlier, like Origin of Channel Incarnation earlier, which is like 2008 or so. So yeah, lots of content sources that we've seen and implemented. So we got one tool to consume them all. And yeah, you can subscribe to early access at the link in the bio. So what content sources are interesting? You know, we've been through Twitter in detail because that's where it all started. And then we branched into like YouTube and Mastodon. Not quite in order listed here because I've done a huge refactor and turned like all this function call into this more abstract content system. And I've made like wrapping APIs and stuff. So this is a breadth, you know, we did depth of the Twitter code and some of the other code in the prior streams. And now we got the breadth. Like you've seen the foundation, and pretty much everything else is derived from that and stems from that and follows the same patterns. It was like that was just one complete one where we don't have to be like, oh yeah, let's go to the Twitter one real quick. You know, and this has been online, not the premium extensions, but Twitter, YouTube, Mastodon, the core ones, the core Hogumathi app have been online. I think the feeds, I offered that one with RSS and Atom, so I made people that knew me aware of it. Did I beat them to death with it? No. And also I just kind of could have been more persistent, but I fell off of it, and I didn't persist this whole time because I just did not have the resources to do this kind of presentation, for example. Maybe you could argue that a year ago I did, but I'd say there's multiple bodies beyond physical. There's emotional, mental, spiritual. As far as the Maslow's hierarchy, well, no, not as far as the Maslow's hierarchy is concerned, but as far as just like spirituality thinking might go, your aura that might be detectable, a magnetic field that goes 10 or 12 feet outside of your body. If you're not in resonance with somebody, you might feel and see physical conflict come out of that. But that your feeling is just going to be the source of physical conflict. And you want to resolve it not at the physical level, but at a more encompassing level, Like spending time dealing with stuff that comes out in the physical is pretty much a waste of time. When you have like the spiritual body that drives everything. If they're in a satanic spirit and you're in a... Am I going too far off topic on this stream? Pardon me. But the spirit of the software is where it's all coming from. So you might look at it on the physical. You might look at a support situation, like why are people not adopting this in the physical if it's so great? It might just be that my whole physical system was from a different spirit, and so I have to move and find people of the same spirit. And so there might be, plots and ploys, whatever, in the physical to access content, whatever, but it's of a different spirit and protected from their whole ability to access me, As long as I don't spend too much time in the physical doesn't have too much time to follow me around. But when one must spend time in the physical, reduce surface area, maximize valuable time use. Pardon if I'm rambling. Like I said, this is largely source material for the AI, for assistants to then produce. So this might be heard from 25 people on Earth who are really good at production but don't have the source material. Like for me, I'm really good at coding, but I don't always have the cause or whatever to code for. So lacking all social contact, I can only listen to my own infinite well of sauce. And I can make this, holding the premium access hostage for... It has been $3 a month for all this time. It's now $12 a month. Because let's be real. Kids shovel snow for $40. That's hard labor. It's not $5 anymore. Let's be real on $12 a month, guys. So I'm offering perks to $100 per month, and one is Hogumathi Premium Access. There's a coupon code from like 2 years ago posted. You can get on it, and you can bet the first users I'll be supporting a little more, but still no guarantee. We might have a nice flow going, and then I disappear one day. You're not paying for support. I'm just offering what I can while I can, Some people get entitled to that, though. So I really prefer to just have a support tier for $225 a month. So yeah, this isn't exactly internals anymore. But even still, you're a hardcore coder. Well, unless you're of the variety that's humans only, and then in which case you must be hella paid because it's so much better. Oh, what, you want me to have charity because you're humans only? What, you want me to have charity because you're homeless? If you got some other stuff going on, maybe I'll toss you a bone, What's this? Homeless guy is a gate, you know, allegedly homeless guy is a gatekeeper. How does that work? What are you talking about, homeless guy? We're having a tech, this, nobody who could make this could be a homeless guy. What are you trying to, what kind of grift are you trying to pull? Right? Hogumathi. Let's look at the ad real quick. Does that close that window? Hogumathi. So yeah, maybe I'll save the further internals for later. I just realized it's pretty late. He's not exactly a kid, eh? Looks like he shaved his beard pretty recently.
Just a guy with a bag. No investors, no team. So he built his own tools, logged every scam, every fake, kept coding, kept posting. And now, people are rooting for him. Hogumathi. Just a guy with...
Why are people rooting for him? Why didn't he have investors or a team? That's good, I guess. People are rooting for him. So yeah, we're into AI territory with this video, and subsequent development will definitely include it. I want to use the best models possible. So I basically use Grok. I like the idea of BrightU.ai. And it is capable of writing code to do stuff. It doesn't know a lot of outside APIs, but I could tell it about them when I ask it to do stuff for me, which is fine. And so, like, let's just do an example. I haven't even run this before. The less the better in some ways. But we'll see how much it can take. Let's just say, what are the main features of the content system described only as having this startup output? of the content system described using only this startup output. Wait, so I don't want to be too specific. Like, what do you mean using only this startup output? So using this startup output, so it's a little redundant in the wording. I don't think the AI cares, but using the startup for inference. Yeah, that sounds good because I'm not saying only anymore. Oops, Shift Enter doesn't work here. So I've got to redo this. Cancel. Just put it in my own editor. So I could definitely strip some of this actually to save it a little effort. And this weight stuff is a little extraneous, but because I could say loaded in order of weights, for example. Yeah. So we could do weight equals, and then D star, so any numbers of digits. I forget how to make it greedy. What can we do? Oh, right. No. Yeah. That's why. Character class followed by star on the outside. All right. So then space. And then we want that escaped. Whoops. Oh no, did we lose it? And then escape. And then we want a space. Yeah. Top to bottom priority with fallback. So it's probably just going to say, oh, it has top to bottom priority with fallback and blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't render new lines, but maybe they're still there. Yeah, looks like it. So that's a pretty big piece of text, but it's probably not unwieldy for a request. So the described content system is a sophisticated So it doesn't seem like it can read it while it's going. The described content system is sophisticated. Still going. The described content system is a sophisticated, multi-layered architecture designed to aggregate and prioritize content from various social media, video platforms, and collections. The system uses a fallback hierarchy, ensuring redundancy and reliability in content retrieval. Below is an analysis of the key features supported by insights from the provided sources. Twitter integration primary source. The system prioritizes Twitter as a top-tier content source, leveraging multiple API endpoints to fetch tweets, replies, bookmarks, like tweets, user feeds, and thread interactions. The architecture includes tweet collections, aggregates tweets using get tweets collection, individual tweet handling, using get tweet item, get tweet embed, and replies, get tweet replies, using regex-based ID extraction for dynamic. Okay. What does it mean by for dynamic targeting? So it gives a source A4. That's interesting. User and network data, access user profiles, followers, following lists, crucial for social graph analysis, B6. That's interesting. So models will do different things like this. I've seen this before. I think they say every output has a source attached to it, so that's pretty sweet. That's not even something I was thinking of, but yeah, that's pretty sweet. So this modular approach ensures scalability, allowing the system to handle both real-time updates, e.g. live conversations via get recent DM feed and historical data, archive tweets, Twitter archive facade. YouTube integration, secondary source. YouTube serves as a secondary but critical repository for video content with support for channels, playlists, and video metadata. Channel and playlist feeds uses YouTube v3 facade.get content source to fetch channel data. Find channel by ID, subscriptions, get channel subscriptions, and curated playlists, get YouTube playlist feed. Yeah, like I mentioned, that's a internal synthesized thing that I made. Video and comment retrieval extracts video specific data and associated comments, get video comments, enabling engagement analytics, A2. That's cool. The system's ability to handle YouTube's age restricted protocols such as AI driven age verification aligns with emerging regulatory requirements. Interesting. Do I do that? I don't know. I don't think so. That's cool. YouTube API makes it possible, that's for sure. Decentralized and alternative platforms. The architecture includes support for non-mainstream platforms, reflecting a commitment to censorship resistance. Brighteon and Chordal integrates decentralized hosting via Brighteon's peer-to-peer network, ensuring content survivability under domain seizures. Did it add those? BitChute and... because I don't think I had Brighteon at that time. Yeah, it added that. Well, that's cool. So it hallucinated itself into my list of content sources. So I don't know about that, source A8. But decentralized video hosting, I do it via an app called Videos. So, BitChute and RSS/Atom feeds, incorporating alt-tech platforms like BitChute and RSS Atom feeds, critical for bypassing centralized moderation. So it was able to put itself into a section that was associated with similar stuff I did, which it would fit, but it's not actually there. Collections and custom feeds. So it's not supposed to hallucinate. So for some reason it thinks that. based on source A8. Which is now publishing videos via a decentralized platform called that. It may even be the case that it consumes YouTube videos or has some feature like an API compatible something or other that would make it work. You know, I'm trying to give it the you know, it's an alarm. It doesn't, you know, it's a yellow flag. The benefit of the doubt. So collections and custom feeds. There's plenty of ways to understand what I just said about the alarming nature of, you know, an alarm you can turn off the alarm, no problem. It just means it's getting low. So before the end of your shift, you better replace it, you know. And you might as well just do it now because it'll take less than 5 minutes. Cool. Collections and custom feeds. The system supports user-curated content through Hogumathi collections, enables dynamic grouping of items, get items collection, get collection, and batch updates, update collection, useful for personalized feeds, brand-specific feeds. So that's interesting. It supports batches and it supports updates. And the name of the thing, update collection, you know, the collection is a singular thing that composes multiple things. So a batch update is like each of the elements being updated at once. But then it does support bulk fetches. So batch updates is the right path in terms of like CQRS, read-write segregation, read-write response segregation, response path segregation. So yeah, update collection, batch update versus bulk fetch. Bulk update, I suppose, could be a thing. Anyway, brand-specific feeds, aggregates branded content, Gumroad products, Instagram posts via brands facade, allowing niche marketing strategies. This is what we're here for. Who's in the chat? Just me. This 5, technical robustness and fallback. Plural fallbacks. The hierarchical fallback mechanism ensures reliability. Primary sources, Twitter and YouTube APIs, are prioritized for real-time data. Secondary sources, Mastodon, GitHub, and RSS feeds act as backups if primary APIs fail. So that's not exactly how I would describe it. I would describe the archive sources as secondary sources because these are just, I see where it's coming from, because primary would be more like primary platforms versus secondary platforms, as opposed to primary store and secondary store within the local platform. So, you know, mass platforms versus alternative platforms. I would describe it technically as live sources and archive sources, and even before live, then we'll have some internal caching source that gives it, you know, a half an hour, a day, whatever the case. So still on number 5, this mirrors principles from blockchain interoperability, FedCoin's cross-chain atomic swaps, B2 source, and critiques of centralized platforms fragility. So yeah, 6, privacy and surveillance risks. The system's handling of user data intersects with growing privacy concerns such as biometric data. New car's ability to collect driver biometrics. A12 raises parallels with YouTube's age verification mandates. A2. So it might have been hallucinating age verification as well. we tacitly gave it the benefit of the doubt with that, because I even questioned my own reality. Did I add some age verification stuff? Maybe. That's literally how gaslighting works, is then just adding confidence to that assertion of you did this. What? How are you so sure? How is your perception more valid than my perception? Because that's the rules? That's the dominance hierarchy rules? Gotcha. Alright, so algorithmic bias. Facebook's deboosting of conservative content, A5, underscores the need for transparent content ranking in the system. Allegedly, A5. Who knows? But that's a good point. Transparent content ranking. I didn't even think about it like that in my mind, but it is ranking the content. So could we make a whole personalized ranking system based on this? Now that I think about it, yeah, I think we could. It might involve, we don't have the remove source, I don't think, but it might involve adding and removing sources dynamically at runtime, in response to things. Right now it sees a post on you. What are you in the mood for with this post? Dang, I'm giving away hella sauce right now without even thinking about it. So, yeah. Very easily. Very easily. Because if sources can be added and removed, and we can add things with increasing weight, we can do some different things. Those are built-in constructs of the content system that enable recommendations. Wow, that's cool. Didn't even think about that. So it gets harder to replace this content system. It gets harder. I guess we'll take a look at it. Maybe that's as deep as we'll go. Because we've got all these content systems, all these sources to look through. And then we've got one towering function, get all content too. Takes a list of collection IDs and content args. Oh no, sorry, that's the bulk one. That ends up using, I think, get content too. Content source function. So yeah, get content, this internally. It yields the function to call. But I think see how I don't like it. So resolve content source would be called probably from get content. Get content. So singular, one content ID. We go through the sources and do some stuff. We call the function. If there's content, then we invoke the hook got content. So get all content to, which get all content regular calls. So I was leaving stuff working as it was and re-implementing it. So I called it number 2, and then I made it work completely as though it were the original, and I just did not delete the original yet. Oh, and this was decorated with some caching, and this was not. So whatever reason I did that, I think that was part of it as well. I had some LRU cache that I was trying out, least recently used. So get all content 2 takes content collection IDs. So that was just a fully qualified name. I named the variable a long thing so I would remember that. Because then we have to map them to source IDs before we call the content source. We're just mapping the name of the source to the actual source, and we're using the source's ID within that string. So Twitter tweet, original tweet ID is our qualified name. So for every content ID in it, So now we're at the singular level. Is bulk enabled? If it is, then go through the bulk prefixes and find out what our content uses, and then add them to the bulk fetches for that prefix. Bulk requests for that bulk content ID, so that'd be Twitter tweets or YouTube videos. Append that content ID, so then we call it with all of those content IDs. Bulk might not be the right word, but it's sort of just multi as opposed to bulk, because bulk might imply a lot. But then you go to the bulk aisle in the grocery store and you just buy however much you want. So for each ID, let's see. So if it's not, so if it is bulk, then skip over this portion. So this is a little bit, this should maybe be split up into two functions, because this is kind of a janky little separation. That would be one way to like make the test cases more confidently and stuff like that. So if it is bulk fetch, then ... But the reason I think to keep this is basically if it's a bulk fetch, but there's no bulk content IDs requested, then it's not considered bulk, and then we still do a content system lookup for that ID or something like that. I don't know. I was looking at it a couple days ago and thinking that I remembered something like that. So then we just return here if it is not bulk at all. Basically, oh no, we set the result equal to something, and we return a dictionary of all the content that we requested for get all content too. So take content IDs and return a dictionary with the content ID that was provided. In terms of our internal qualified name, not the origin content ID. I keep saying that. It's important pretty much to me from the history of the system, because a lot of the code that we will find was made before any of this. So in the documentation, we need to sort of call that out as far as the present state of the world. One way to do documentation might be to write it in terms of the ideal end product that we're going to ship, and another might be in terms of where we are right now for developers to work on. And previously that might have been two teams working on two products, two documentation products or projects, internal products, internal product owners, because it's more than just that project, perhaps. So enterprise, there might be developer documentation and then like developer and then marketing site documentation, whatever, but they still need to be consistent with each other. So using generative AI, we might generate both. And yeah, it might read kind of like slop that is just going to be then processed by more AI, which sucks. But we can also edit it and give it a human touch as well with each release, especially if we have it do a stable, I don't want to give away too much sauce as well in terms of my thinking, I've said enough. But yeah, we can do fancy things. So then we just have register hooks, and then it's just a hook type dot append, invoke hooks, hook type got content with content ID and the content. This is how I was thinking about caching everything and just having a general cache layer in front of everything. And it could have a whitelist of patterns that it'll cache. It could look at the return type of the cache and only cache things of certain types. And then when the cache content source, which is like top priority, like 10,000 if everything else is 1,000, So it first hits the cache. If it's not there, then it goes on and does what it was going to do. And then, you know what? I'm getting a vision that I think I actually implemented this. I don't know if it's in the code still, if I did it on a live server. So this is the downside of not being disciplined and pushing everything into a Git repo. So why might one not be disciplined and push everything into a Git repo? Well, it might be because they're just really like manic proof of concepting some stuff, and they don't think it's going to be long term. Like AI generated scripts now, you can generate 4 scripts that do about the same thing, and then you get a headache thinking like, where are all of these and which did exactly the thing that I want? Now I got to catalog it somehow. Or, similar to the cache, before you generate anything, you first, as a matter of discipline or a setup on the AI, look at like, hey, have I done anything similar to this before? And if so, how do we need to update what we've done to make it a small evolution? Keep all the same code, just add a little bit to it. If you have ears to hear, man, I'm dropping so much shiny stuff on you right now. So, gonna go ahead and mention again that I got gratuity links as well as product and Patreon links, which are for Sovereign IT, which is the bigger picture of this. $100 a month of support gets free Hogumathi Premium, which is $12 a month. And for the ideal state versus actual state, again, back from that documentation now that's ideal. Right now that post is visible to everybody. So if you go in at any amount, you'll get early access to Hogumathi Premium. But I do intend to update that sooner rather than later. So get on it, otherwise it's going to go up to $100 a month minimum, and that's the actual version versus the ideal version. So if we've got early access, we publish what works, and for everyone else we publish what it is or even what it's going to be. The present planned what we're going to be. So if you want to like mock the endpoints or whatever and code against it, this is what we plan it to be. It's not guaranteed. It's like a V0 in terms of semantic versioning, but this is our V0 documentation. Developers know what that means. So I'm very confident in the stability of this stream, but at 12 o'clock, I've observed the internet cutting out before. I don't know if it happens, and if it does, if it'll recover. It should. Nginx is good about those things. The YouTube side, I would imagine, has some forgiveness about those things. It would just be, I guess, if the encoder had behavior that was compatible with whatever YouTube does. In my memory, if it drops, it changes the audio rate, and it's really annoying until basically it plays it at a probably logarithmically changing rate as it consumes the buffer. And like how much is in the buffer? If it's a lot, then play it, hella, drop hella samples, compensate in some way. Because I'm thinking what I've observed is like super slow speech. Why would it do that? You'd think it would be super fast speech because it's trying to catch up. But what I've observed is it does super slow speech, and then, this is kind of meta, sorry. It does, just to wrap it up, it does slow speech, and then it eventually catches up to, like it asymptotically approaches normal speed. So I'm not sure if that's consistent anyway with that dropping behavior, but I'm not sure why, what the explanation is, and if it would be the same. So, yeah, we got to check the video is flowing every, gosh, how much should we check that? You know, it should just be within peripheral vision. And so right now I like it because I've got a flashing Ethernet indicator. And it's just how can I bring that within my vision would be the question. It's not guaranteed that that's what's happening, but I know that all that's happening over this, it's a direct peer-to-peer Ethernet link, so all that's going on is one end or the other is broadcasting. And it's probably the end that I want to be broadcasting. So anyway, little tangent for why we have this register hook stuff going on. Invoke hook, it just goes over all our registered hooks for that. Yeah, indeed, object cache, we were starting. So we were just starting to flesh it out by writing some queries. So you can obviously see what inspires this table. Insert into content, DT for date time, provider, ID, yada yada. We actually give it args, that's pretty interesting. Select latest statement, so this would imply that we are snapshotted by date time, indeed. Unique on provider, ID, date time, and args. So date time will pretty much be the unique key. So we could maybe do better. We could give it an explicit query ID. Content, each content will have a row ID, but there's no concept. In my existing cache for Twitter feeds, I have the concept of a query type, and query ID is the row ID. And then pagination tokens, I have a next token field. So query ID with a, so right, each page of a query is, okay, wrongly called a query ID. So that's a little bit off. Sort of a request ID, a page ID. But it's not always pages. You know, it could be individual results as well. It's how do we encapsulate it, blah, blah, blah. See, there's a lot to deliberate, but this will save us so much work if. So don't get me wrong. I have just implemented stuff that works, and it's working. Now I'm thinking bigger picture, expanding exponentially, you know, really next level stuff that's really detailed and builds on everything that we've built so far. Right now we've got to put some intelligence into it. Could we use AI to do this? Well, AI wasn't here when I made this to begin with. Could we use it now? Absolutely. Should we use it? That's a big question, because again, before AI, while I was making this, I came up with the concept of intellectual debt. It's akin to technical debt. Technical debt is, you know, coders are familiar with it. It's just ship and slop, you know, ship and crap, ship in stuff that needs some fixing up, ship in stuff that's not very well thought through. There's all these patterns of technical debt. But then if you use AI, you start getting intellectual debt. And I was not talking about AI at the time of that concept's inception. I was thinking about software as a service and vendors. Basically, and libraries and whatever else, even hiring help through external contractors. You're not absorbing as much of that knowledge. So, intellectual debt. You just don't understand stuff. So you understand the technical debt items pretty well because you wrote them. You know how you're going to fix it already. And it stays in your mind for some months probably. Thinking if I have any closing thoughts. So, I was thinking about calling this a capstone project because it's not necessarily the keystone, but it is really the capstone of big apps post AI. So a capstone is sort of the end of an era, and a keystone, it's a little different. It's the stone, it really holds the whole arch's weight together, whereas a capstone is not necessarily structural. This was a structural, let me see what I mentioned in the description that I was going to cover, because I'm sure I've not covered it all. So I'm just avoiding doing the software development by sharing more, but might as well make some content in this reaction video format. But for software developers, I thought I put more in there. Nope. So oh no, zero viewers. Oh no. But hopefully kind of greenfield. I mean evergreen. I keep saying that. Hopefully kind of evergreen. And I gave you a pretty, probably pretty bare bones AI's ability to break down what I'm doing just based on this output. So pretty sweet. It seems to have hallucinated a little bit, understandably. We know just giving it the benefit of the doubt or not. And we looked at the content system itself a little bit. It's very simple and it's very compact. It's kind of complicated, but it does a lot. It's hard to replace. So, do we invest in it or do we invest in replacing it? It's a big choice. Something to be said for having your own little system like this. Sovereign Tech, Patreon, get on it. Link in description. Products, link in description. Link directly to Hogumathi Premium product. which includes early access and possibly other stuff. Support plan available. We've got some freelance or some structured collaboration offers as well. 1 day, 2 day, 24 advance notice, hour phone calls. Unlimited for 5K per year. dailydriverapps.com. You can basically prompt me as a human. Again, pre-AI, but it perfectly fits the AI paradigm of describing to an agent what you want done. So you can just describe it to me as your agent, and I'll tell you how much it's going to cost and everything. So yeah, thanks for joining. Cheers and be well.